सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। इति मंत्र। ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंस्तुष्टुवागुंभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। Okay, so let us do the first section of the second chapter. Tadetat satyam yada sudiptat pavakaad.
तदेतत् सत्यं यथा सुदीप्तात् पावकात्
विस्फुलिंगा सहस्रश प्रभवन्त स्वरूपाः
विस्फुलिंगा सहस्रशः प्रभवन्ते स्वरूपाः
तथाक्षराद् विविधा सौम्य भावाः
तथाक्षरात् विविधा सौम्य भावाः
प्रजायन्ते तत्र चैवापियन्ति
प्रजायन्ते तत्र चैवापियन्ति
दिव्यो ह्यमूर्तः पुरुषः सबाह्यन्भ्यन्तरो ह्यजः
दिव्यो ह्यमूर्तः पुरुषः बाह्याभ्यन्तरो ह्यजः
दिव्यो ह्यमूर्तः पुरुषः सबाह्यभ्यन्तरो ह्यजः
दिव्यो ह्यमूर्तः पुरुषः बाह्याभ्यन्तरो ह्यजः
अप्राणो ह्यमनः शुभ्रो ह्यक्षरात् परतः परः
अप्राणो ह्यमनः शुभ्रो ह्यक्षरात् परतः परः
एतस्मात् जायते प्राणः मनः सर्वेन्द्रियाणि च
एतस्मात् जायते प्राणः मनः सर्वेन्द्रियाणि च
खं वायुर्ज्योतिरापः पृथ्वी विश्वस्य धारिणी
खं वायु ज्योतिरापः पृथ्वी विश्वस्य धारिणी
अग्निर्मूर्धा चक्षुषी चन्द्रसूर्यो
अग्निर्मूर्धा चक्षुषी चन्द्रसूर्यो
दिशश्रोत्रे वाग्वृताश्च वेदाः
दिशः श्रोत्रे
वायुः प्राणो हृदयं विश्वमस्य
वायुः प्राणो हृदयं विश्वस्य
पद्भ्यां पृथिवी ह्येष सर्वभूतान्तरात्मा
पद्भ्यां पृथिवी भूतान्तरात्मा
तस्मादग्निः समिद्धो यस्य सूर्यः
तस्मादग्निः समिद्धो यस्य सूर्यः.
Guys, you need to chant. You'll never get the words otherwise. Tasmadagnis samiddho yasya suryah.
Tasmadagnis samiddho
सूर्यः
Somat parjanya oshadhaya prativyam.
धूमात् पर्जन्य औषधयः सपत्न्याम्
पुमान् रेतः सिञ्चति योषितायाम्
मान्नेतायाम्
बहविः प्रजा पुरुषात् सम्प्रसूताः
पुरुषात् सम्पूताः
तस्मादृत्साम यजूंषि दीक्षा
तस्मात् यजूषि दीक्षा
तस्माद्, you have to break it up if you want. तस्मादृक्साम यजूंषि दीक्षाः
तस्माद् यजूंषि दीक्षाः
यज्ञाश्च सर्वे कृतवो दक्षिणाश्च
ऋतवो दक्षिणाश्च
संवत्सरश्च यजमानश्च लोकाः
यजमानश्च लोकाः
होमो यत्र पवते यत्र सूर्यः
सोमो यत्र पवते यत्र सूर्यः
तस्माच्च देवा बहुधा सम्प्रसूताः साध्या मनुष्याः पशवो वयांसि
साध्या मनुष्या पशवो
वयांसि
प्राणापानो व्रीह्यवौ तपश्च
प्राणापानो व्रीह्यवौ तपश्च
श्रद्धा सत्यं ब्रह्मचर्यं विधिश्च
श्रद्धा सत्यं ब्रह्मचर्यं विधिश्च
सप्त प्राणाः प्रभवन्ति तस्मात्
सप्त प्राणाः प्रभवन्ति तस्मात्
सप्तर्षिः समिद्ध सप्त होमाः
सप्तर्षिः समिद्धा सप्त होमाः
सप्तार्चिषः समिद्धः सप्त होमाः
सप्तर्षिः समिद्धि सप्त होमाः
सप्त इमे लोका येषु चरन्ति
सप्त इमे लोका येषु चरन्ति
प्राणा गुहाशया निहिताः सप्त सप्त
प्राणा गुहाशया निहिता सप्त सप्त
अतः समुद्रा गिरयश्च सर्वे
समुद्राद्यश्च सर्वे
अस्मात् स्यन्द्यन्ते सिन्धवः स्वरूपाः सर्वरूपाः
तस्मात् स्यन्दन्ते सिन्धवः
अस्मात् स्यन्दन्ते सिन्धवः सर्वरूपाः
सर्वरूपाः
अतश्च सर्वा ओषधयो रसश्च येनैष भूतैस्तिष्ठते ह्यन्तरात्मा
तिष्ठते ह्यन्तरात्मा
पुरुष एवेदं विश्वं कर्म
पुरुष एवेदं
कर्म
तपो ब्रह्मा परामृतम्
तपो ब्रह्मा परामृतम्
एतद्यो वेद निहितं गुहायाम्
एतद्यो वेद निहितं गुहायाम्
सोविद्या ग्रन्थिं विकिरतीह सौम्य
विद्या ग्रन्थिं विकिरतीह सौम्यः
इति द्वितीयमुण्डके प्रथमखण्डः
प्रथमखण्डः
Okay, you guys are really struggling with it. You need to practice it, you know, when the class is not on also. If the words are not there in your mind, how will you ever learn the meaning? That's why I keep saying, do the chanting. If you don't come for the class, at least do the chanting at home. Okay, so we are looking at the second verse now. We looked at the first verse yesterday or the last Saturday. And what was the crux of that verse? What was the one meaning which you can take from the verse, from the first verse, first mantra? Can someone summarize that first mantra? Come on, guys. Who shall I
That
ask?
the consciousness principle is one, and
Mhm.
there is no division between the Atma and the Paramatma. Although Brahman, as though appears to be the cause of the universe, the Karyam, but actually it is the same. There is no division.
Excellent. So there is only one Satyam Brahman, with or without the Upadhi. Upadhis give them names and forms, but what is to be known is that there is only one Brahman. That was what was in the last mantra. Now look at this mantra, second one. Divyaha hi. That himurtaha has to be split into himurtaha. So divyaha hyamurtaha purushaha sabhayabantaro yajaha. So purusha here is Brahman. Divya means the sacred, the shining, self-revealing one, self-shining one. Himurtaha has to be broken into two pieces. He plus amurtaha. It is not he plus murtaha. So he plus amurtaha. Amurtaha here is taken as one without a form. So murti is form. As you know, murti means statue in Hindi. So it's taken as a form. Amurta is formless. Then sabhahyabhantaraho sa bahya abhyantaraha. Three words. Sa bahya abhyantaraha. Sa means together with or to be taken as present. Sa here means present. Where bahya outside and abhyantaraha inside. So bahya and abhyantarahi, it is present in both the places. Then aprano. Aprano is without prana. So that we'll explain when we come to the words. Then aprano hi amanaha. Amanaha means without mind. Yajaha. Yajaha has to be broken. Hi ajaha. Ajaha is not born. So first line is hi ajaha, not born. Second line apranaha, without prana. Himanaha, without mind. Shubhraha, pure. Then he aksharat parataha paraha. So that is required to explain in more. So I'll take up that when the words come. So Shankara gives the very meaning of this mantra with his first introduction, where he says that Yat sarva upadhi bheda varjitam. Sarva upadhi bheda varjitam. That which is free from all differences of upadhi. But what is that? It is Brahman, it is Atman. And Swarupam Aksharam Eva. Indestructible nature of that Brahman. And Akashasya Sarva Murti Varjitaha. Free from Sarva Murti Varjitaha. Free from all forms like Akashaha, like space. So understand it properly. Just as space is free from any form, this Brahman is also free from any form. And therefore, his introduction itself negates all changes in Brahman. Brahman is immutable, which means what? Whatever happens in this world, whatever happens to Jagat, to Anatma, no change happens to Brahman. And therefore, Brahman's condition is what? This is being defined. The Shastram starts with Aksharam Brahma. Remember, where did we see Aksharam Brahma? The word Aksharam Brahma, where did it come? I hope you all are regularly revising. Without that, this is going to be very difficult. Where did we come up with Aksharam Brahma?
Yenaksharam Purusham.
Okay, so it came in the first chapter. Aksharam Brahma. Now grammatically, Aksharam is neuter gender. Okay, neuter gender. But here he says Purusha. Purusha is male gender. And Shankara here makes a very good point. He says that the usage of neuter gender in one verse, in one mantra, and the usage of the male gender in one mantra is should be taken to mean that the gender definition should not be applied to Brahman. And that is why any gender can apply to Brahman, because Brahman has no gender. That is why he is using it first in the neutral gender and then in the male gender. Okay, so just by the way, just to show that the very grammatical usage in Shruti, in the Upanishad, that itself means that Brahman has no gender. So what does Purusha mean? Purusha means Purnaha, the one who is full. That definition we gave. So the existence of the universe is borrowed from this Purusha. Very universe itself exists as Purusha. Purusha, remember, here is Brahman. Okay. So Shankara adds over here, Purusha is infinite and existing in the body, inside and outside. So Purushaha Purnaha, inside, Purishayova, also inside, existing in the body and outside the body also, which means the body exists in Purusha. Purusha is not in the body. Brahman is, to say that Brahman is in the body is okay, but it's more accurate to say that Brahman is also in the body, because Brahman is inside as well as outside. And therefore, a better way of understanding is what? The body exists in Brahman. Just like the bottle exists in the space, or there is space in the bottle, there is space outside the bottle also. Another way of putting it is the bottle exists in the space. Similarly, this body exists in that infinite Brahman, which both inside and outside. Then we look at the word Divya. So Divya means of the nature of pure consciousness. So that which is self-revealing. So Divya normally can be taken to mean divine, but here Shankara clarifies, you should be taken as Chaitanya Swarupaha, of the nature of pure consciousness, and can also be taken as not found in this world, Alaukika. And if you take that meaning, then because it is not found in this world, Brahman is the revealer of everything that is found in the world. Okay, that is one meaning. Now let us look at the meaning that Shankara gives. Shankara gives three different meanings for Divya. The first is self-effulgent, that which does not need an external source of illumination to reveal it. So self-effulgent. He writes, Swayam Prakashayate iti Divyaha. That which is revealing itself. Swayam Prakashayate, that is Divya. Why Swayam Prakashayate? How does it reveal itself? Because consciousness is its intrinsic nature. And therefore the word Jyotihi, Jyoti is light. The word Jyoti is very often used in scripture for consciousness, self-revealing. Then, in the second meaning, Shankara says, Swatmani Bhavaha Divyaha. Swatmani means the one, Bhavaha means to reside, to stay. Swatmani means in yourself. So the one who abides in himself, that is called Divya. Remember that whenever we talk about Mithya, we say there is a support. We say Mithya always requires Satyam for support. And therefore, with that context, how will you define Swatmani? Because Brahman is Satyam and the Jagat is Mithya. Whenever we say Jagat is Mithya, we say Jagat takes the support of Brahman for its existence. And if you are using the word Swatmani, abiding in himself for Brahman, what does it mean? How would you define? Anybody?
It doesn't need any support to sustain itself. It's self-sufficient.
Excellent. So it has no adhishthanam, it has no support other than itself, and therefore Swatmani Bhava. So each of these words, for us to properly understand, we have to keep the whole teaching in mind, which is why I keep saying that we need to be sure that we are up to date with all the previous mantras also whenever we come to any class. So that's the second meaning. The first meaning which Shankara said was self-effulgent, swayam prakashayate. The second meaning was abiding in itself. And the third meaning is alaukika. So Divya here can be taken as not available on this world, extraordinary, out of this world. So it can be taken as Swarga over here, but it's not a correct interpretation because Brahman is very much available in this world. This is one of the definitions which Shankara gives, alaukika, which is out of the world, available in the world and still out of the world. Okay. The next word is hi amurtaha. So he is just for emphasis, indeed, amurtaha without form. And we have to understand this as that consciousness which is without form, but it is the revealer of all the forms. The revealing consciousness has no form. And so we can say that Brahman has no form. But is the reverse true? Can we say that whatever is formless is Brahman? Can we say that whatever is formless is Brahman? Is it a valid statement?
No.
Why? Give an example.
Prakriti. That will be Maya. Avyakta Maya.
Avyakta Maya. So you can give a more concrete example like space is formless,
Yes,
but
yes,
space is
yes.
a product of Brahman. Right?
Yes.
Time is formless. Time is a product of Brahman. So very carefully remembering that Brahman is formless, but everything formless is not Brahman. Anything which is known to consciousness, is it Brahman? No. Because consciousness alone is Brahman. Something which is known to consciousness cannot be Brahman. And that consciousness alone is referred to as Amurtaha, without form. That consciousness alone is formless. So all these discussions you need to remember so that there's no confusion about Brahman's, you can't really say attributes, the description. Then the next word is sabhyantara. So sa bahya bhyantaraha. Sa bahya plus abhyantaraha. Sa means with, associated with, along with. So associated with the inside and the outside. Bahya plus abhyantaraha. Consciousness therefore cannot be referred to as outside or inside because all pervading. Everything is in Brahman alone. Then in that case, why does the mantra say Bahya and Abhyantaraha? So Shankara says you have to understand properly. It is outside and inside, yes. Now supposing we say that, there is some noise outside the house. There is a reference point, right? Whenever we say outside or inside, there will always a reference point. That concept outside or the concept inside has no meaning without a point of reference. And here, what is the point of reference when we say Atma is, Brahman is outside and inside?
Body.
Body.
The point of reference is the body. So the concepts external and internal are only a usage of words with reference to the body only. Actually speaking, without the reference point of the body, these concepts are not applicable at all. Just like east and west and north and south. When we give the names of these directions, what is the reference point? Beg your pardon?
The sun.
The sun. And therefore, if you are sitting on the sun, assuming that you're sitting on the sun, which is north, which is east, which is south, which is west, these things don't apply at all, right? Similarly here, if you take away the reference point of the body, then external and internal are not applicable at all. Okay, so everything is outside, which is outside, and which is inside, emerge from that Purushaha, from that Brahman only. They emerge from that, they are sustained in that, and they are resolved into that Purusha. And that is why it is all pervasive. It is there everywhere. Everything is born, everything is sustained, everything dissolves back into Purusha. Then the next word is Hi Ajaha. We are still on the first line. Okay, whenever we are looking at mantras, you have to very closely follow the, because I'm doing part of it with the borrowing from Bhashyam, we need to make sure that we don't lose sight of the original mantra, the Moolam part. So we have done Divya, Yamurtaha, Purushaha, Sabhaya Bhantaraha. Now the next one is Yajaha. Yajaha is Hi Ajaha, birthless or without beginning. And so Shankara gives a small discussion on this. We have done this in the Bhagavad Gita. I hope you will remember. When a thing is born, we say it comes into existence, which means it had no prior existence, right? So in Tarka Shastra, a temporary object, any temporary object is something which did not have existence prior to its being born. There was a technical term used, Prag Bhavaha Pratyogi. Pratyogi means endowed with. Prag Bhava. Prag means before. Bhava is the existence. Endowed with prior existence. Prag Bhava Pratyogi and Pradvamsa Abhava Pratyogi. Endowed with non-existence after the destruction. So there are two concepts. One is having non-existence before being born. That is Prag Bhava Pratyogi. And one is having non-existence after destruction, which is Pradvamsa Abhava Pratyogi. Two technical terms you need not remember, but useful because this appears very extensively in the Bhashyam and especially in Gita Bhashyam, where they talk about which verse can you remember? Where did we talk about all this? It was the Shankara Bhashyam class.
18th chapter. Shankara.
18th chapter also we talked. The first time we talked was on the 16th verse of the second chapter. So they're very important. Prag Bhava Pratyogi, having prior non-existence and having posterior non-existence. That is Pradvamsa Bhava. So based on this definition, why are these two concepts important? Because based on this definition, you can define Nitya Vastu. What is eternal? And what is eternal? That which does not have Pragabhava or Pradvamsa Bhava. Means it does not have non-existence before, nor does it have non-existence afterwards. Okay, so by saying Ajaha here, all changes are being negated. So Ajaha is not born, which means what? Free of birth. The first Shadvikara, free of birth, is free of that Vikara. Then, okay, if you look at this mantra, it says Ajaha, so free of birth. What about death? So Shankara makes a clarification over here, a very important clarification, which we saw in the Bhagavad Gita also. He says, when you talk about any one of the Shadvikaras, any one of those 6 changes, if you are saying that an object is free from any one of the changes, you have to use it as a lakshanam, as an indication that the object is free of all the other 5 changes also. And therefore, by saying that he is free of death, you are also saying that asti, vardate, viparanamate, apakshiyate, vinashyati, all are also negated. Okay. So if he says, Shankara says that Janma is in this particular mantra, and by the negation of that particular Shadvikara, he says Sarve Pratisiddha Bhavanti. All the Shadvikaras should be taken to have been negated. This is a very important corollary, a refinement in our understanding of Shadvikara, which we have through Tattvabodha. There we went to negate each and every one. If you want to negate anyone, you take each one and negate. Here he is saying that they are all interlinked. Wow, logically, what is the definition? What is the reason why he is saying that if something is not born, you have to take everything else as also negated? What can be the logic?
If it's not born, it cannot grow, or it cannot.
Exactly. You can take born as the base and extrapolate into each one of these changes. You will find that logically none of the other changes are possible. So what is the corollary? Janma is the base, is the first one. What did you say, Tattvabodha? Which is the first one?
Asti.
So here you are refining that concept. Okay. So far you said Asti Jayate. Shankara is saying that is all right. I said that in Tattvabodha, but now on you should say Jayate first. Jayate born, then Asti. Okay, so it should be taken as the that Tattvabodha order is to be taken as exceptional order, not the normal order. The normal order should be Jayate, Asti, and then the rest of it. Because Asti is to be taken, we said Asti was being in the womb, right? But here you have to take Asti as is. Is means after birth. If the child exists. If the child is not born, how can it exist? Therefore, Jayate first, Asti second, and so on. Very, very important refinement to our understanding of Shadvikara. But this is only for the purpose of, from here onwards, up to here, you still talk about Asti Jayate. Right. So here we can talk about, if you want to understand it, supposing you are talking about the birth of a child, you can say, is the child alive? When does it come? Astiva. That is the Sanskrit word. Astiva. Astiva. Is it alive? Okay. When can you say that? Only after Jayate. And therefore, after having said Jayate, and after having come to Asti, then you can say Vardate, etc. That is the meaning of the word Heja. And Shankara explains because, yeah.
I have a couple of questions before you go further.
Yeah.
First about this Asti Jayate.
Yeah.
So when we take Jayate Asti, Jayate is referring to birth from the womb or just conception?
Birth in the womb. Or
in the womb.
You can take it as, like the birth outside. Asti here means, is there a child? Now you can take it either way. If you are talking about the child in the womb, even then, is there a child can come only after the child is born, at least conceived in the womb.
Yeah, conception I'm asking, because otherwise, if otherwise also during the pregnancy the child is there,
Yes.
the existence is there, we know this.
Correct. But in normal usage, you can take it either way. If you are taking Asti as, is the child there in the fetus form, then Jayate is conceived. If you are taking the child as having been born, then Jayate is the child there, not in the. Either way, it doesn't change the meaning. But this refinement is important because to understand that Asti Jayate Tattvabodha is only an exceptional case. Not that you should change it during your classes, okay? It should come at this stage only. For a long time, you have to stick with Asti Jayate. Later on, you switch that. One more example of Shastra telling you that don't hang on to things.
No, this can you repeat Asti Jayate in Tattvabodha and then Jayate Asti, the meaning we're taking now? Can you just repeat again?
Asti in Tattvabodha was taken as conception in the womb. And Jayate was taken as having been born. Here, you can take Jayate as the conception and Asti as having been born. The two things are reversed. And there is a refinement, of course. If you're talking about the fetus itself and you say, is there a child in your womb? Then the Jayate is conception only. But if you are talking about a child having been born, then Jayate can be born and Asti can be the child exists. Do you see the difference? There is no real difference. You're just changing
Yeah.
the frame of reference.
Yeah, I get it. But when we take the meaning as Jayate being born and then seeing Asti is the child there, but then, it just kind of doesn't include that whole conception and
It doesn't. You have sort of cut out the whole conception period. So
Yeah.
probably a better way is to take it as conception as the child being conceived is Jayate, and therefore it is there. In the womb, the child is very much there. So you can take that also. Then the being born. The only problem with that is the being born is not referred to then afterwards. When being born means actually being outside the mother's body. That process doesn't come into the picture at all.
So here, when we say Jayate, it is, okay, first it is born, then it exists. Or
You can take that meaning also.
like because it is born, it exists. Otherwise, you can't say it doesn't exist.
Yes. But you can always argue saying that how can you say it doesn't exist before it is born? It is existing in the mother's body.
Yeah.
That's why I said you have to take it with contextual. Wherever the context permits, you take it as conception or you take it as being born.
Okay. And I have one more question, Raviji, about this Anadi. How if you negate one of the 6 Shadvikara, then everything is negated. So that if it is Anadi, it is also Ananta.
If it is Anadi, it is Ananta. Marana Rahitam.
No, I think we had this discussion. I had asked the same question some time back about, I think, Sukshma Shariram, which is Anadi. But in the end, there is almost an Antam, somewhat of an Antam.
No, very much there's an Antam. Like if Moksha is there, then definitely you have destroyed that body.
So in this case, Sukshma Shariram is Anadi, but also Antam. I mean, there is an Antam.
Yes, that will be an exception. So that's why everywhere you will find that you cannot apply one flat rule saying this is there. You have to broadly see what is the context. So if you are looking Sukshma Shariram, then you cannot say that one negation of one vikara will negate everything else. Do you see?
So to what is he applying this rule?
He's applying this rule here to say that because we are saying Ajaha, unborn, you need not separately negate the Shadvikaras. Just negating everything. In itself, that one negation of unborn, of being born will negate everything else, all the other 5 also. So Atma is free from Shadvikara. That is what is being said here. Contextually, if you take it, it makes sense. If you take it in the sense of Sukshma Shariram, then it won't make sense.
Okay.
Okay. So here, your analytical mind has to become slightly less analytical. Okay. You can't hold on to one particular rule and apply generally. Everything has to be applied in context. As you go to the other Upanishads, you will see that seemingly, hard and fast rules which you have done so far, those are also junked.
That's true, Raviji, but how can we become less analytical when Upanishad itself is so much analytical?
Okay, so you have to take Upanishad as Pramanam and say, okay, Upanishad says that, try to dig holes in it and find the answer. Okay. So finally here, Shankara says that because Atma Brahman is Ajaha, it is also what they call free from Vriddhi, the other references. It is also free from Viparanyama, Bhama. It is also free from Ajara, that is, he uses all these words. Ataha, because it is free from Ajaha, Dhruvaha. Dhruvaha means Vardhate, that particular Ashadvikara is not there. Aksharaha, that is Viparinama Ashadvikara is not there. Ajaraha, Jara is not there. Jara means Apakshiyate is not there. Amritaha it is there. So Vinashyati is not there. And therefore he says all the 4 vikaras have been negated. What has not been negated? Jayate and Asti. Shankara doesn't comment upon Jayate and Asti. Why? Because why? Why does Shankara not comment upon when in this particular thing? I have given you the reasoning, but Shankara doesn't comment. He simply says the four vikaras have been negated. Four vikaras being the vardate, viparanyame, apaksyate, and vinashyate. He does not comment upon the other two, jayate and asti. Jayate has been negated. How? By saying ajaha. Right? Ajaha means no birth, so jayate has been negated. What about asti?
Because Brahman is always there. Trikale tishtati iti sata.
Can you really say that you're negating asti?
No, we are not.
Why?
No.
It's a very staring in the face, friends. The answer. If you are
Brahman is there everywhere all the time.
very much, if you are saying Brahman has no asti, you are saying Brahman is free of existence. Brahman nasti. Brahman does not have existence, you're saying. Right? So Shankara doesn't touch upon jayate and asti, but remember that jayate is negated by saying ajaha. Asti cannot be negated because Brahman very much asti. It is really there. Okay. So then what is the asti which is being negated?
Coming into existence.
You have to think of this in terms of RC and OC. Okay. The asti, the existence in OC can never be negated. But the existence in RC, the asti in RC can very much be negated. Isn't it? Does the RC come and go?
Yeah, it looks like it comes and goes,
No,
but
no, no. There's no looks like.
It does come and go. Mind.
Yes. RC means what? What are the components of the RC?
OC plus RM.
OC. Which of this comes and goes? The RM
RM.
comes and goes. If the RM goes, does the RC remain?
No.
No.
That is what is asked. So when you say asti is negated, the asti of the OC can never be negated. But the asti of the RC is negated because the RM is negatable. RM comes and goes. So when you remove the object, when you remove the mirror, the reflection goes away. When you remove an object, the existence which is reflected in that object goes away. But the original existence, where does it go anywhere? No. It keeps on going there. And therefore, this particular thing is called sadhabhasaha. Sat abhasaha. The as if sat. Abhasa means sat or reflection. Sat. And therefore, asti here, the negation of asti, remember, it is referring to sadhabhasaha and not original sat. You have to very carefully remember that. The asti of Shadvikara is relative existence, while the asti of Brahman is absolute existence. The asti of Brahman can never be negated. The asti of Shadvikara, of the RC, of the body-mind sense complex, definitely it can be negated. Because the RC depends upon the RM. The RM is the body-mind complex. That body-mind complex comes and goes. Therefore, the RC also comes and goes. Okay. Any questions so far?
But here we are not talking about RC at all, right? We are only talking about Brahman.
Talking about OC. Therefore, it can be negated. I'm giving the explanation to see that supposing you are talking about this Brahman and you say, yes, Asti can never be negated. Then don't apply that when you're talking about the body-mind complex. That clarity should be there, that in the RC, Shadvikaras all are there, all can be negated. In the OC, there are no Shadvikaras at all. That clarity should be there. Sometimes it's easy to confuse because we said that Asti remains. Does it not remain in RC? No, it doesn't remain in RC. Okay. All right. Then next one is what? Apranaha. Apranaha is free of prana. Shankara very carefully adds here. Free of prana means what? What does free of prana mean?
Free of karma.
Movement.
Free of movement, okay, but in terms of your body, in terms of 3 bodies, what does free of prana mean?
Free of subtle body.
Ultimately, yes. So it means free of pranamaya kosha, and pranamaya kosha can be there only when there is sukshma shariram. So apranaha here has to be taken as no sukshma shariram. Okay. And what is the purpose of that prana, of the sukshma shariram? Kriya shakti. And therefore it is to be taken as aprana means no sharira, no sukshma shariram, and therefore free of movement. Because prana is required for movement. The pranamaya kosha is required for movement. And therefore, free of movement means what? Karta or akarta?
Karta.
Karta.
I mean, free of movement is a karta.
Free of movement is akarta. So purusha here has to be understood. The prana, aprana here has to be understood in these meanings. And Shankara adds here that aprana can have 2 meanings. Okay, Shankara has to complicate everything. So he says that is all right, but aprana can have 2 meanings. One meaning is that it had prana once and now it does not. And the second meaning is that it never has prana at all. So he says because of the context of Brahman, which meaning has to be taken?
It never
It
had.
never had
It never
prana.
had prana. Okay? Because prana will be created only after the creation of the Jagat, creation of universe. And Brahman exists before that. And therefore Brahman is taken as the creator of prana. So here when I'm saying Brahman, it's Ishvara, okay? It's the creator of the prana also. Okay. Then Hyamanaha. The next one is Hyamanaha, without the mind. Now here the mind comes into being when you are born, right? So it's the effect of birth. The mind is a karyam. And being born is therefore necessary condition for the mind to be there. And because of aja, because of the word aja in the first line, you have to connect that to the fact that since he is not born, he will have no mind also. Therefore, Hyamanaha. And we very often say that Brahman can think, Brahman can, feel, Brahman can do. You have to understand that Brahman is akarta, which means none of these things he can do, primarily because Brahman has no sukshma shariram at all. The sukshma shariram can be there. And if it is there, then there will be a sthula shariram also. Whenever the mind is there, mind is anatma. Sukshma shariram is anatma. Brahman is what? Atma. And therefore, it is free of anatma. It is the cause of anatma, but it is free of anatma. And therefore, since the anatma is not there, since the Brahman has no mind, therefore, mind is, which is a product, cannot be there. Mind is a manifestation of what Shakti? Jnana Shakti and Ichha Shakti. How do you know? Vijnanamaya Kosha and Manomaya Kosha. So Brahman has none of these. Then how does Brahman create? If Brahman has no Jnana Shakti and Ichha Shakti, then how does Brahman create?
With its Maya Shakti.
Maya Shakti. So Maya Shakti, Maya has got Prana Shakti, Ichha Shakti, Kriya Shakti. And therefore, Prana is not necessary for Brahman at all. Mana is, that is the mind is not necessary for Brahman at all. All these are already present in Maya Shakti. And for visualization of the world before creation, Brahman uses Maya. Maya used for the purpose of visualizing and creating. And therefore Shankara says that here these two words, pranaha and manaha, can also be taken as indicators, indicative words. Indicative words are known as, in Sanskrit, as upalakshanam. So prana indicates what? Pancha karmendriyan. Both are products of Rajas, and all are objects of karmendriya also. And manaha should include jnanendriyanis and all the objects of the jnanendriyanis. All the components of the Sukshma Shariram are included. With this classification, the entire component of Sukshma Shariram is included. And if you take that in totality, put the two together, which two? Prana and manaha. So we said prana includes karmendriyani as well as all its objects. Manaha includes jnanendriyani as well as all its objects. Put them together, you have the whole Jagat. The entire Jagat is included. And because he is negating these two, in this mantra we are saying that he doesn't have a mind, he doesn't have prana also. By negating these two, the entire Jagat has been negated. So Brahman is free from Jagat, is free from Maya. That is the meaning. The next one is Shubhraha. So Shubhraha is pure, free from any impurity. So we can think about like Raga Dvesha. And how is it free? How can it be free? Here we have to very carefully remember that Brahman and Maya, they belong to different levels of reality. One is Satyam, one is Mithya. One is Paramarthika Satyam, one is Vyavaharika Satyam. Just as the impurities of the dream incidentally is what Satyam?
Pratibhasik.
Pratibhasika Satyam. So the dream is of a lower level of reality than Vyavaharika. So Pratibhasika is of a lower level of reality than Vyavaharika. Similarly, Vyavaharika is a lower level of reality than Pratibhasika. So just as the Pratibhasika, the impurities of the dream cannot touch the waker, not the dreamer. The impurities of the dream will definitely affect the dreamer, but it will not affect the creator of the dream universe, who is the waker. Similarly, the impurities of this Jagat, which is Mithya Jagat, which is Vyavaharika Jagat, cannot affect Brahman, which is of a different and a higher order of reality. And Shankara says this is obvious. Brahman is free of Jagat and therefore necessarily free of any impurity belonging to Jagat. That is why Shubhraha. And the last one, Hi Aksharat Paratah Paraha. So Paraha, you can rearrange that. Paraha, Parataha, Aksharat Hi. He again is for emphasis. Now Aksharam here, normally Aksharam used in two senses, right? Where did we see this? Bhagavad Gita. Anybody remembers? Parastasmat bhavonyah avyakto vyaktat sanatanaha yasa sarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsu na vinasyati. Which chapter?
Aksharam Brahma.
Chapter. It's the 8th chapter. Okay. So there we said tasmat avyaktat paraha. There is one which is greater than the avyaktam. What is that? Anyaha avyakta bhavaha. There exists another unmanifest, sanatana, eternal, na vinasyati, does not get destroyed when sarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsu. When everything else gets destroyed, this thing does not get destroyed. So here, in this aksharat paraha, this aksharam is avyakta maya. Okay, not Brahman. Aksharam is normally used for Brahman. But here, the aksharat is avyakta maya. It is akshara. Why? Why? Akshara means not destroyed, not destroyable. So Avyakta Maya, can it be destroyed? No. Because when the universe is resolved after Pralayam, Maya still exists as what? Samashti Karana Shariram, which is what is called Avyakta Maya. And therefore the adjective Paraha is used here, supreme is used here, because everything is resolving into this Avyakta Maya. But Maya is dependent upon Brahman, and hence Purusha is para to it. Therefore, there is a second para over here. Aksharat parataha paraha. One paraha is Avyakta Maya. The second paraha is Brahman. It's practically a replication of that 8.20, chapter 8, verse 20 of the Bhagavad Gita. Or you can say that that has been derived from here. This is the original idea. And therefore, we need to understand all this very carefully. Aksharam, this word normally refers to Ishvara, who is indicated by Upadhi. What is the Upadhi? Maya. Okay. And this unmanifest Maya is also Ishvara. Manifest Maya, the Brahman with both unmanifest Maya is Ishvara. With manifest Maya is also Ishvara. This is called Aksharam over here. And Ishvara is superior to all the products of Maya. Why? This Ishvara here, you can take it as Antaryami. Samashti Karana Shariram. Okay. Everything originates from there. And Karanam is always said to be superior to Karya. The creator is always superior to the product. And therefore, the Karya Prapancha, the entire meaning of the entire world of Karya Prapancha, all the entire universe itself is born from this Antaryami only, the Samashti Karana Shariram only. This is the meaning of Parataha, indicating the superiority of Ishvara. Then the Param in the Moolam, the Paraha, that are discussing the superiority of Nirguna Brahman over Ishvara. Okay, so why do we say Ishvara is superior? Because Ishvara is Jagat Karanam. And Jagat Karanam can be taken as Hiranyagarbha also. Remember, okay, in Shastra, there are two usages of Ishvara. One is as Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha is what in terms of the Samashti? Which?
Samashti Shukshma Sharira.
Brahmaji.
Brahmaji. But whenever you use the word, remember to consciously use the full thing. Samashti Shukshma Shariram can mean that it is inert. Therefore, Samashti Shukshma Sharira Sahitya Chaitanyam, or Sahitya Chaitanyam has to be added on with Chaitanyam. Samashti Shukshma Shariram with Chaitanyam. Okay, that is Hiranyagarbha. But sometimes Shastra also uses the word Antaryami for Ishvara. And there it is Samashti Karna Shariram with Chaitanya. Therefore, if you are going to use Ishvara as the word, you must be very clear in your mind whether you are referring to Hiranyagarbha or whether you are referring to Antaryami. If you are not clear about how you are using the word, there is confusion. And that is why it is necessary to be alert to the contextual meaning always. Okay, so physical bodies are Karyam because all subtle bodies are Karana. And therefore, subtle bodies are superior to physical bodies. Then, since Karanam is superior to Karyam, the meaning here given is that the Nirguna Brahman is superior to all the two Ishvara, both the Ishvaras. If it is superior to Antaryami, obviously Nirguna Brahman is superior to Hiranyagarbha also. Because both Hiranyagarbha and Antaryami, they are both having upadhis. right? What is the Upadhi for Antaryami? What is the Upadhi for Antaryami?
Avyakta Maya or Karana Prapancha.
Antaryami is, the Upadhi is Samashti Karana Shariram, Avyakta Maya. Okay. So in these discussions especially, it is better to use the technical word. And then for Hiranyagarbha, the Upadhi is Samashti Sukshma Shariram. But Nirguna Brahman has no Upadhi at all. And in that way, he is the most superior. Therefore, Parata Paraha. So in short, if you want to give a hierarchy, Nirguna Brahman superior to Antaryami, superior to Hiranyagarbha, Hiranyagarbha superior to Jagat. This is the meaning of Akshara Parataha Paraha. So hence Supreme Brahman, Nirguna Brahman, is beyond Maya also, is not affected by Maya, and therefore the universe emerges from this Maya. Remember, not from Brahman, but blessed by Brahman. And Brahman can be understood in two ways: not bound by time, and therefore Satyam. This is one viewpoint. And then from the standpoint of time, you will find that Shastra uses the term Satyam in both ways. As Nirguna Brahman, absolute. In terms of Saguna Ishvara, relative. Whenever you use the word Satyam, remember it is absolute Satyam or relative Satyam. That has to be understood from the context. You will find that Shastra uses the term in both ways. Okay, so there is a technical word called Samanadhikaranam. For example, if the necklace is gold, and our intention is to point out that necklace is not different from its substance, the gold, what happens? Once having pointed this out, that the necklace is gold only, our understanding only changes, right? The necklace does not disappear. When we say the necklace is negated, it doesn't mean that necklace has gone away. And therefore, when you say that Jagat has been negated, it doesn't mean that Jagat has gone away. It means your understanding that Jagat is Satyam, that understanding has gone away. So there is a Shruti Vakyam, one statement in the Chandogya Upanishad. Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. Everything here is Brahman only. Idam is the Jagat. Idam means this. This is the Jagat. When you understand the statement properly, that everything here is Brahman only, remember that Idam does not go away. It is still available to you for perception. But now, instead of seeing that as Satyam, you see it as Nama Rupa only, as Mithya only. That is because being Mithya, their existence necessarily depends upon Satyam. Okay. With this, I'll give a small break in case we have any questions. Yes, please.
The whole verse appears very disjointed, kind of.
It's not really disjointed. If you look at the actual meaning, word to word meaning, Purushahi, Brahman is indeed, Divyaha, self-effulgent, Amurtaha, formless, Sabahya Bhayantaraha, within and without, Ajaha, birthless, Apranaha, without prana, Amanaha, without mind, Shubhraha, pure, Parahi Aksharat Paraha, beyond Maya, and also beyond the world. Parata. The
So
simple
it is
English.
talking about Nirgun Brahman only, right?
Ultimately, we are all, everything here is Nirguna Brahman. But it's trying to explain in as many ways as possible so that we understand properly. It's not easy, especially because we are trying to get in Shankara's arguments also. But Shankara's arguments give clarity to our thoughts, because just the explanation on the verse itself will not make too much sense. How and why of every word is important. Okay.
Raviji, when you were talking about relative satyam and absolute satyam,
Yeah.
Is it okay to say that, when we go on resolving the relative satyam, like for example, okay, table, the satyam of table is wood, the satyam of wood is whatever, and so on, and the last one you get, that is the absolute satyam.
Which cannot be resolved any further.
Yeah.
That is the absolute satyam.
Okay.
But then contextually, when you say, for example, that Lord Brahmaji has an infinite life, okay, that infinite is apekshika satyam. It is relative satyam, not absolute. But when you say Brahman is infinite, that is absolute satyam. So what you're saying is correct. You resolve everything until something cannot be resolved at all. That is your neti, right? The neti technique itself is that.
Can we say that the absolute Satyam, when we resolve it, will always be Brahman?
Yes. In fact, I would at this stage say that when you resolve everything, it will always be you. You have to understand, you cannot say Brahman anymore. You have to say I. You are in Mundaka Upanishad now. So whenever you say Brahman, that Aham Brahma Asmi, that has to be drummed into your mind. That Brahman I am.
Actually, that was why I asked the question, because we always feel like, okay, there is some absolute thing and there is some relative thing.
Yes.
And then, but when you go on resolving, there's only one thing.
That is you.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that should be in every one of our Upanishads. We'll try to end it by saying that Brahman which I have just described, that Brahman is I alone. That's the assimilation of that. Initially, it looked like it's a lot of arrogance, I'm infinite and all those things. But when you consider that, when you feel you're being arrogant, you are looking at it from the point of view of the body-mind complex. From the point of view of Brahman, there is no arrogance, because there is only Brahman.
Yeah, when there's nobody to show off to, where is the
Where is the arrogance? Exactly. Okay. Then we look at verse number 3. We may not get to complete this, but we'll start off. So, etasma jayate pranaha manaha sarvendriyani cha kham vayur jyotihi apaha prithvi vishwasya dharani. Etasmat. From that. From what? From that Brahman. You have to connect it to the previous verse. The Brahman talked about in the previous verse. Jayate is born. Pranaha, manaha, the prana, the mind. Sarve indriyanicha, all the indriyas also. Jnana indriyas, karma indriyas, all of them. Plus kham, which is the sky or the space. Vayuhu, the wind. Jyotihi, the fire. Apaha, water. Okay. And Prithvi, which is the earth. The 5 Pancha Mahabhutas, the 5 elements are taken care of. And Prithvi is given as an adjective is given to Prithvi. Vishwasya Dharani. Dharani means the one who supports. Vishwam is all the people on this earth. Vishwasya Dharani. It supports the entire universe and all the people on the universe. So from Brahman comes Ishvara. This has to be understood. Etasma jayate. Before that, from Brahman comes Ishvara, because Brahman plus Maya is equal to Para plus Apara Prakriti. So from Ishvara, what comes first? The Pancha Mahabhutas evolve first. And therefore, Kham Vayuhu Jyotihi Apaha Prithvi. Space, air, fire, water, earth. These are all evolving. And we can recall our Tattvabodha classes. Panchamahabhutani have two stages. Sukshma Panchamahabhutani, the subtle five elements. Sthula Panchamahabhutani, the gross five elements. And then from these five elements, Pranaha Manaha, the subtle body is born, which consists of, among other things, the Pranamaya Kosha and the Manomaya Kosha. And then from them are born Sarve Indriyani, the Karmendriyanis and the Jnanendriyanis. And here you have to recall Tattvabodha. They are created from the Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas gunas of Maya. Thus, the three gunas themselves are alone responsible for the creation of the universe. Sattva guna stands for knowing, jnanam. Rajoguna stands for doing, kriya. Tamoguna stands for dravya, inert or resting. And if you look at these three things, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, or knowing, doing and resting, your whole life is taken care of. You know something, you do something, you rest. Again, you get up and know, do and rest. So whole creation is being presented as being projected from Maya only. And there are these three gunas only. And of course, the gunas are inert. This we keep on reminding ourselves. Gunas are jada, gunas are inert, Maya is inert, nature is inert, Prithvi is inert. But blessed by Brahman, right? Just like when you bring the iron filings close to the magnet doesn't do anything, but the iron filings start moving towards the magnet. So the iron filings are, so to say, activated by the presence of the magnet. Similarly, Maya gets activated in the presence of Brahman. So here, of course, there is a limitation to the example because you have to bring the iron filings close to the magnet. But Maya is always there in the proximity of Brahman. Okay. Now, what initiates the Srishti, the so-called Big Bang? The law of karma is the initiator. Because karma needs to be experienced by the jivas, it is necessary for Srishti to happen. Right? So, very often we say Brahman is like the male principle, Maya is like the female principle, and conception can be stated to be the Big Bang. The Srishti can be stated to be the Big Bang. So, it's a Big Bang theory also comes in. But with the exception that you are putting Brahman and Maya as the parents, as the people, as the two people or two entities because of which Big Bang takes place. Okay, now come is an order for the element, right? The five elements, there is a particular order of appearance. The first subtle ones, then the gross, and then the grossest. Slowly it becomes. So, and that he says over here, come, Akasha. And what is the attribute of Akasha?
Sound.
Sound. Okay, come, Shabda. And slowly all the others come. So come, Akasha, all the four attributes, Rupa, Sparsha, Rasa, Gandha, all are negated. What is left over is what? Sound, which is said to be specific to space. Then there is Vayu, touch. Sparsha touches and has sound too. One can hear the blowing wind, therefore Vayu has both. Then Agni, which has 3. Then Jala, which has 4. And Gandha, which has 5. Okay. Now look at the mantra. It talks about the Bhutanis, Bhautikanis first. And the Bhutanis later. Is there a problem with that? I'm presuming that you know the difference between Bhautikani and Bhutani. Okay. What is Bhautikani?
Combination of elements.
Combination of elements. So mantra is giving Bhautikanis first. How? Pranaha, Manaha, Sarvendriyan. They are the Bhautikanis. And then it says, Kam Vayu Jyotirapa. Okay. So Shankara comments upon it and says, yes, the mantra gives it in reverse order. Okay. So the correct order is called Artha Krama. Krama means serial order. Artha Krama means it is a logical order. And that logical order is obviously what Bhutan is first and then Bhautikan is. And there's a textual order, okay, as it appears in the text. In this case, appearing in the mantra. That's called a Patha Krama. So these are all terms which are used in the science called Mimamsa, analysis of the scriptures. And there is a rule. When the two kramas differ, the logical sequence differs from the sequence appearing in the text, which should be given importance?
Logic.
Logic should be given importance. Therefore, the Artha Krama is always superior to the Patha Krama, even if the Patha is a Veda itself. So, mantra itself, you don't touch the mantra. Mantra's order you cannot change, but the Mimamsa rule is that when the Patha Krama and Artha Krama are inconsistent, you should rearrange the words in your own intellect for the understanding. You don't touch the mantra, you don't rearrange the mantra, but you rearrange your understanding to be in alignment with the logical part. So Artha Krama we know, so we take up the logical part of it and arrange our understanding according to that. Okay, so that is one commentary, part of the commentary. Shankara always gives these so that in case this doubt comes, how can mantra give a different krama? Shankara says, fine, mantra is giving krama, doesn't matter. But what is wrong in your rearranging it in your understanding? Nothing. You can't touch the mantra because mantra is sacred. So you just arrange your understanding properly, realign it, and there's no problem. Okay, now we look at the individual words. Etasmat eva. So that first word you have to break up. Etasmat jayate pranaha. Etasmat, from that Brahman alone. Which Brahman? Now, there are two Brahmans. There is a Karanam Brahman and there is a Karya Karana Vilakshana Brahman. You know both the words, I hope. What is Karana Brahman?
Saguna.
Ishvara.
Okay.
Saguna.
What is Karya Karana Vilakshana Brahman?
Nirguna.
Nirguna. Vilakshana means free from. So there is a Karanam Brahma, which means that Brahman, which is the Karyam, which is Saguneshwara. And there is a Karya Karana Vilakshan Brahman, which is Nirguna Brahman. So Etasmat here, from that Brahman. Which Brahman are you talking about?
Saguna.
Karana Brahman.
Karanam Brahma, Saguneshwara. Right. Since we are talking about Srishti, remember that Etasmat cannot be Akarta Brahman. Has to refer to Saguna Brahman. And Shankara very clearly says it in his commentary. He says this Brahman is indicated by Nama Rupa Bija Upadhi. So Nama Rupa Jagat. Bija is the seed. Upadhi is the Upadhi. Therefore, that Brahman which is got a Nama Rupa, which is Saguna Brahman, from that Brahman, everything is born. Jayate. Everything is born. Now, the question is, what type of creation is born? That also has to be seen, right? Real creation is born or unreal creation is born. So here, in other interpretations, there are differences, okay? Because, for example, Vishishta Advaita, it says that Brahman changes, that Saguna Brahman modifies to produce a real creation. So that Saguna Brahman is Satyam for them. It modifies to produce a Satyam creation. And therefore it is a Parinama Vada. Parinami is what? The changes being produced. It's called a Brahma Parinama Vada, which means the Brahman itself is changing to produce the product, the Jagat. But Advaita says your statement is correct, but you have to add one more word. Seemingly modifies, as if modifies. So while Vishishta Advaita says Brahman modifies to produce the real Jagat, we say that Brahman seemingly modifies to produce a Mithya Jagat. For the Vishishta Advaita, Jagat is real. For the Advaitin, like us, Jagat is Mithya. And therefore, the earlier one is called Brahma Parinama Vada. Our Vada is called the Brahma Vivarta Vada. You might remember Vivarta Upadana Karanam and Parinami Upadana Karanam. One changes, one does not change. For us, Brahman only seemingly changes, it doesn't change at all. Why so? We say the modification is because of avidya only. So avidya kalpitam is mithya because of the fact that our understanding is confused by avidya. There is a seeming modification. And that modification is what? In the form of mithya jagat. Mithya karyam, which is the jagat. And what is this karyam? Shankara uses a beautiful term. Namadheya. Only in the form of a name. Shankara says this jagat which you are so obsessed with, there is only a name. It exists only on your tongue. There is no substance called jagat. And therefore, what is the degree of reality of jagat? So the ontological status, to use the term, ontological status, the degree of reality of jagat, it is false in nature. It is mithya. It's a lower order of reality called Vyavaharika Satyam. And what is this karyam? What is the product? Shankara says pranaha. And because Shruti uses the term, Shankara says pranaha has to represent the entire jagat over here. And he quotes a very beautiful little line from the Chandogya Upanishad. Vacharambanam vikaro namadeyam. You have to remember this line, one of the most pithy and most important lines of the entire Shastra. This Vacharambanam vikaro namadeyam. Vacharambhanam means that which is initiated by your tongue. Vacha arambhanam. That which is there only on your tongue. And vikaraha. It is a modification. And namadheyam. Namadheyam means only a name. There is no substance at all. So this is the definition of mithya. Vacharambhanam vikaro namadheyam. Something which exists only on your tongue. There is no real substance at all. And why is this so? Because of avidya kalpitena, because of the confusion of avidya, because of the association of avidya with our mind. And Shankara argues, since this prana, this jagat, is Vyavaharika Satyam, it's from a different level of reality, and Brahman is, of course, Paramarthika Satyam. It's a different level of reality, and therefore Brahman is always free of jagat. So he gives the example. He says, supposing Devadatta has a son in his dreams. Okay, in his dream, Devadatta is a father. But when he wakes up, he is free from the dream son. He cannot call himself father. Simply because the two states of reality are different. The waking state is Vyavaharika, the dreaming state is Pratibhasika. The Pratibhasika state is a lower level of reality than the Vyavaharika state. And therefore, what is true in the Pratibhasika state cannot affect the status in the Vyavaharika state. Similarly, what is true in the Vyavaharika state cannot affect the status in the Paramarthika state. And therefore, Brahman is free of Mithya Jagat always. So a casual reading of all this, casual understanding is that everything emerges from Brahman. But Shankara points out that the essence, the Tatparyam of Vedanta is not to explain Srishti. And this is something which you all need to understand, that the very purpose, the very main objective of Vedanta is never to explain the creation. In spite of everything emerging from Brahman, Brahman is always free from everything. Therefore, we are talking about Nirguna Brahman, from which nothing comes. Shankara says this particular mantra, 212, is the key mantra because it talks about Nirguna Brahman, which is the key to moksha. And the same Nirguna Brahman is taught in all the Shastras very elaborately in two ways, as Saguna Karanam and Saguna Karyam. As the Karanam and the Karyam, as the creator and the creation, that same Nirguna Brahman is being taught. But when you do the Neti Neti exercise to knock off both the Karyam and the Karanam, leaving you with a Brahman which is free of Karyam and Karanam. Karya Karana Vilakshana Brahman. In short, he says, this Aksharam Brahma is the subject matter of Paravidya. And what is the nature of the Brahman? Nirvishesham, no attributes at all. And all the words which have been used earlier, Purusham, Satyam, all these words have been talked about from the Paramarthika's drishti, it is Nirguna Brahman only. Wherever you talk about attributes, Satyam, etc., it is always Vyavaharika drishti, always Saguna form. And therefore you might say, why is it necessary to talk about Saguna Brahman? Why do we need to talk about Saguna Brahman at all? Because the ultimate reality is only the Nirguna Brahman. Why do we want to talk about Saguna Brahman? Because anything entering Vyavaharika is subject to the influence of Maya. And when Brahman enters Vyavaharika, Brahman is also influenced by Maya. So from the point of view of Vyavaharika Drishti, there can be no such thing as a Nirguna Brahma. From the concept of Vyavaharika, from the concept of this transactional world, there is only Saguna Brahman, Saguna Jiva, and Saguna Jagat. These three are not separate. They should always be remembered, but they are always present. And therefore, Shankara says, Vistarena Vaktavyam. They have to be taught in very, very great detail. Okay, so with this I'll stop. Any questions?
Om Acharya, you said even Brahman also undergoes change because
No,
of
I didn't
the
say anything like that.
Vyavaharika.
No.
It's
No,
so
you have to use
when
words.
it comes to Vyavaharika, so
yes. Saguna
so
Brahman is there.
So when we come to Vyavaharika, so the question is about why are we studying this, right? So when we know that the Satyam is always Nirguna Brahma, so why do we need to study this? Right?
Because you cannot study something formless. You have to have the form. If I ask you to meditate upon Nirguna Brahman, what are you going to do? There are no attributes to meditate upon.
Okay.
But the study of Saguna Brahman is essential before you can, migrate into the study of Nirguna Brahman. And remember, from the point of Vyavaharika, you have to study what is available to you. It is only Saguna Brahman. Your Jiva is Saguna, Brahman is Saguna, and the Jagat is also Saguna. A very clear understanding of this principle is necessary. Very often, a lot of Vedantics will dismiss everything Saguna, saying Nirgunam is Param. But what is available to you? Only Saguna is available.
So it's like Neti Neti, we keep negating everything, and then as we discussed, like only Brahman alone remains. So we are understanding the Anatma first, so that the Atma is
You understand Anatma and you negate Anatma, but what remains with you is still Anatma.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions? If not, we'll close the day. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah
Thank you.
Shivaya.
Om Tat
Have a
Sat.
great week.
Om Tat Sat. Thank you, Acharya.